Good evening, and welcome to Hello, It's Us, Perspectives on Inclusion. This program is dedicated to educating the general public about issues that are important to the disability community. But we hope that you will realize as you view these programs that these issues are important to everyone because people with disabilities certainly are an integral part of our society. Hello, It's Us is brought to you through a collaboration between the University of Iowa Center for Disabilities and Development, Uptown Bill's Coffee Shop, and our good friends here at Public Access TV. My name is Mike Hoenig. I work at the Center for Disabilities and Development as a program coordinator, and I also serve as a co-host for Hello, It's Us. Keith?
My name is Keith Ruff. I'm a co-host. I just got published a book this year, so I'm very happy about that. And I'm retired, but I'm still an activist for disability issues.
I think once you're an activist, you're always an activist, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, we're welcome everyone back to our two-part series on the OIDD Diversity Fellowships. We're going to actually, for those of you that saw the first part, and even for those that didn't, our first segment focused a lot on the sponsoring collaborating organizations for these fellowships, which are the Office on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, which is an office within the Administration on Community Living, and the Association of University Centers on Disabilities, which is the umbrella agency or organization that provides a lot of support and assistance to programs like the Iowa University Center for Excellence on Disabilities, for which I work. This part of our program, we're really going to get down to the nuts and bolts of the diversity fellowships, and I'm very pleased to welcome our two CDD diversity fellows, Julia Ganda and Jorrell Watkins. So welcome back to both of you.
Thank you.
Now we start with a question for both of you. How did you learn about the project, and why did you want to join the project?
So how I first learned about the fellowship was through Derek. We had lunch. It was nothing related to what ended up being the fellowship side of things, but it was just through my job, and we had lunch, and then he introduced the fellowship, and just through that and our discussion, I got interested, and also through my through College of Social Work, they sent out an email, and I was just like, oh, maybe this is meant to be. So then it was just like a perfect opportunity, and I looked more into it and visited the website and just educated myself more, and to learn and to be aware of what all was going to be involved. And so through that, I applied and got into it. And then what was your second question? I'm sorry.
Why were you interested?
I think I was interested just because being within the field of social work is just like a great opportunity, and through my work as a direct care professional through REACH, it was just a perfect opportunity to hone in on my skills and to just hopefully get back to the reason why I went into social work.
Jorrell, could you follow up?
Yes, the email I actually received an email as well too. I was a first-year student last year, and honestly, I was coming from Richmond, Virginia. Being in Iowa, I didn't have that much going on, and so I wanted to find ways to connect with the community, right? And so when I saw the email, I was like, wait a minute, all right, this reminds me of some work I did prior to when I was in Richmond. My background is in education, also with reentry services. I used to work as a case manager out of jail. And being in both settings, I realized that some of the people I work with, individuals with disabilities, and I didn't feel that the people who were there that I worked with, and also nor myself, had the skills in order to serve individual disabilities the way that will make them thrive in those communities and in those settings. So I applied for, like Julia, I applied for the fellowship. I had an interview with Derek and the rest of the team at the CDD, and to my surprise, I became a diversity fellow.
That's great. And for those who don't know, Derek is Derek Willis, and he's our pretty new still, director of the University Center for Excellence in Disabilities, which is one part of CDD, the Center for Disabilities and Development. Don't you just love all these acronyms? You know, I just want to comment about your response, particularly Jorrell, when you said that about some of the work that you've been doing before, you know, that really didn't encompass disability like you thought it should.
Right.
You know, those of us that have worked in disability a long time are recognizing that we haven't, and I say those of us, I'm speaking for myself, but I know there are others, that we realize that we haven't really embraced diversity the way that we need to. So it's kind of neat to hear you coming maybe from the other side that's had had the background and lived experience in, you know, being considered from a minority culture, that you are saying, hey, wait a minute, we need to incorporate disability.
Right.
Because sometimes I feel like there's still this push and pull. I've been on committees where we've had, like the diversity culturally responsive care conference. There was quite a heavy lift that was required to incorporate disability. And then on the other hand, I think sometimes within the disability movement, we cannot embrace diversity, as I said, like this. So it's, you know, we're all kind of trying to work toward the same thing of equity and inclusion, and yet that's one of the beauties, I think, of the diversity fellowships, is it brings diversity and disability together.
For sure.
I have a question for both of you. When did you begin?
We both began at the same time. It was January of this year, and we're still I'm still working on my project still. Right. So so January until now.
Both of you.
Both of us, yes.
Yeah, and tell us. I'm guessing this is what a lot of people have been waiting for, is to hear about some of the activities that you've been involved with as diversity fellows.
I guess I can start us off, and feel free to add anything as I'm going along too. The fellowship, which I believe is like a 10-month fellowship, right? There was several different stages. There was the first five or so months in which we did a lot of research, and also just to get up to date in disability studies, right? And so we had these course modules in which we did everything from looking at like the DD Act to Katie Becker waivers to even like Olmsted Task Force. Derek, Julia, and I, we went to Des Moines, Iowa, actually, to sit in on an Olmsted Task Force meeting, which was pretty interesting. I think we can talk about that a bit more in a second if you like. And then actually I went up by myself to this Disability Initiative Forum that was held at the Iowa City Public Library back in March. And that's actually where I met the director of Combined Efforts, Janet, who I'm working with this new play that I'm writing for my Capstone Project. Any other activities you think of, Julia?
I think also just through the like the clinic observations that we were able to like get connected with. Like did you see the autism one? Like I got to be in the Healy Clinic, which focuses mostly on like autism. And then also like the NDE, which is the neurodevelopmental evaluation. And so just through those observations, and I got to go to Dubuque, Iowa, and observe like a child special clinic there. And that was just an amazing experience, and just to see like all the great work that they're doing there. And also I think the other just great connection was through like being at the university. Like they throw out a lot of emails, and so I think my eyes were just more open to like things that were disabilities focused, and so I was just able to attend more events and activities that were held at the university. And I think you attended one of the events at the Capitol. Right. Actually, there's Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the CDA, the Council for Disability Awareness, right? So I attended, I believe, a couple meetings, and there was a organized rally that happened on the Pentacrest. I'm trying to remember the date when that happened, but I remember going there. And Julia, you went to the after event, I believe, or was it a sign making? What was it? Yeah, it was just like an event to celebrate like all that happened, and to just share because I wasn't able to attend, but through attending the the after event, I just learned of all the great things that you got to
Right.
observe at the
Right.
rally.
Yeah, that rally was, that was student, or if it's the one I'm thinking about, it was student organized,
Correct,
right?
yes.
Yeah, so that was really cool that you got a chance to participate in that, and yeah, the Council on Disability Awareness is really becoming, you know, pretty active, and it's really, the voice of students is loud and clear now, so I'm so glad that you guys got to connect with that in one way or another. I would love to hear your thoughts on Olmsted. I'm going to the Olmsted Consumer Task Force in Des Moines, and since you mentioned that you might have a little more to share on that, I mean, just general impressions of what that was like.
My experience, one, that I had like we had the background of actually doing the modules and hearing about the history a bit about Olmsted Task Force, so we had that in mind, though we didn't know what kind of role that we would actively participate in the meeting, and so when we got there, a lot of things were kind of just in swing, right? And it seemed like there was a lot, there was a lot of deliberations that were going on, and so all good stuff. But for us, I don't want to speak for you, but for myself personally, I was like, oh, okay, if this is something I want to join a part, I don't know how easy it would be for me to actually sit upon this committee. Not to say that they were exclusive in any kind of way. It's just that there was a lot of things that were going on and taking speed. It lasted, I believe, about 2 hours or so, right? Yeah. And so, but yeah, those are like some very general thoughts I have.
That'd be cool if you, that for those who might not be familiar, that's a task force that Iowa, is the Iowa Department of Human Services, Mental Health and Disability Services Department or Division has hosted or has convened for many years to help the state of Iowa implement the Olmsted Supreme Court decision, which entitles people to living in the least restrictive environment of their choice, and so, which is now about 20 years old. I think Olmsted was signed tonight.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Can I add one more thing
Please
before
do.
we move on?
I will say though, during the break, there was a great opportunity in which Derek actually introduced Julie and I to different people in the room, and so I made several connections with people who I was talking. Well, for one example, was John McCallie of the Merit Group, and I was talking to him about like my work with reentry and incarceration, and he gave me a lot of good ideas to think about what I can do for my Capstone project. Some of which I wasn't able to put in, but some of which I was able to put into the play, and so. I think that task force was a really good meeting place for people who are like-minded and also who want to do work in the community, so it was good.
And I think also it was just great to like hear of all like the policies that are happening within. A lot of it was Des Moines focused, but of course
Right.
it's like Iowa in general. So it was just great to like hear all the great things that are happening within our state.
yeah, and you know, I think it is, and policy is so important, and it's so important in your future work. I mean, sometimes I think, you know, whether it's the performing arts, Jorrell, you're already demonstrating through some of your, you know, with this play. We're going to talk about the Capstone Projects in a minute. That how important that is, and Julia, I think too, with social work or wherever you end up, whatever discipline you end up practicing. Policy and how it impacts the people you serve is just something you have to be aware of. So I'm so glad that you got introduced to that.
Definitely.
Following up with Mike, could you briefly describe your capstone project?
My capstone was, I don't know if, I guess, being that I was born in Congo and just coming here within the United States, like at a young age, and seeing how much the Congolese community has grown within the little time that I've been here, it's just that like inspired my capstone into, like I first started, like I wanted to do my capstone within just disabilities within immigrants, but then I just wanted to narrow it down within the community that I identify myself with. So, and then with all the issues that I see and like with people not getting services within the Congolese population, that's what led me to my capstone, which I did like an assessment within the Congolese population to see like their perspective on disabilities and how they view disabilities, which I'm still doing the project now, but it's been interesting within itself. And at first, I wanted to do like focus groups, but just knowing my own community, I ended up switching my capstone into interviews, which it ended up being more personal in that, like, I met the people where they were at. Some were in their homes. Some we met out for coffee, and literally it was just like interviews to see their perspective, and it was culturally specific in just addressing their views and how they view disabilities, which has been really interesting, and it's opened up a dialogue. And I'm hoping this is not the ending of this project, and that this is just like a first step into like whatever could come out of it. And so right now I'm doing the data analysis of the interviews, but it's been just interesting, honestly, and just seeing people's perspectives and hearing people's stories and just hearing how they view disabilities, how they see the difference within disabilities here and back in the Congo. It's been interesting.
Now, were these people or families that have loved ones with disabilities, or was this just kind of the general Congolese population?
A little of both. It's been both.
How have you? So it's probably too early if you're still doing data analysis to sense whether there were differences in attitudes between those that had loved ones with disabilities and those who didn't. Right? Is it too early to answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that sounds exciting. And will there be? I mean, I know you're doing a presentation at CDD. I don't know if that's an open. Do you know if that's an open presentation for people that might want to come or not?
Yes, it's an open presentation, and it's on October 30th at noon, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, and we'll be presenting together. So yeah, it's an open invitation, and yeah.
And that'll be at the Center for Disabilities and Development, right? On October 30th. So,
Correct.
and if those of you that are watching, or on either on PATV or on YouTube, probably the best way for you, if you want further information about that, you can certainly show up on the 30th at noon, and we'll direct you. Or you can email me, and I can certainly pass the word on. My email address, and we'll ask Sujit to post this, is Michael, Michael -Hoenig @uiowa.edu. So I hope to hear from some of the viewers out there, not just about this show, but any comments that you have. But we especially would love to have you join us for the fellowship presentation on the 30th. So, Jorrell, you're up.
Yeah.
So my capstone project. My capstone project was the research, the writing, development, and production of a disability-inclusive play for theater. So the research came from the 5 to 6 months portion of the Disability and Diversity Fellowship that Julie and I did. I was actually kind of grappling with this particular policy. It's the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, right? And so there's a section in it, Section 14, I think the clause, and and don't quote me verbatim on this, but pretty much what this clause does, the Section 14C clause, is that it allows for a sub-minimum wage based upon productivity. So workers who do not meet the productivity that they understand that's average can actually be paid below the minimum wage, right? And so when I heard about that, I was like, that is just absolutely gross, right? There are certain companies that even today that reported paying individuals with disabilities as low as 22 cents an hour. This doesn't necessarily happen in a grocery store, but what does happen in a grocery store is marginalization and workforce discrimination, right? And so the play, one, pulls from the research I was doing as a diversity fellow, two, also my 9 years plus experience ever since I was 16 years old working as a grocery store, right? And one of the things that I was thinking about is how the grocery store is this center place in the community, right? And that people from all different backgrounds come and work there, right? And so it's something that maybe I think I took for granted, this space, because I was just working there and then I was shopping there, but also I realized that this is also a place where individuals with disabilities often find meaningful and gainful employment, right? And also everyone is viewed as a team. We really talk about teamwork. We talk about community. We talk about service to customers. And so these ideas and these values having a grocery store, I was like, wait a minute, there's a play here, right? And so past the research, then it was the development aspect of it, right? And you did say be brief, but I feel like I'm talking at length.
We're good.
All right.
We got time.
Oh, sounds good. Thank you, Mike.
Tell us about your development. I'm really fascinated by this.
Oh,
I think our guests, our viewers will be too. So.
Thank you. And so I'm working with Combined Efforts, and Combined Efforts is a local disability inclusive arts theater company here, and they do everything from theater, performing arts, to choir, and even dance as well too. And so, like I said earlier, I met Janet, the company director of Combined Efforts, back in March, and she said, "Oh, we're looking for a playwright." I say, "Well, I happen to write plays," and she was like, "Okay, you should write a play for us." I might just do that, and so and that began a community relationship between the USED, CDD, and also with Combined Efforts, right? And so I wrote the play in April to the end of May, and I just wrote it from scratch. And so every day I was just writing bits and bits on piece of it, right? And so the thing about I've written a couple plays in the past, but with this play, I wanted to have a commitment to disability, right? And I wanted to make sure that all the roles were accessible and that any accommodations that need to be made would be placed. And so I was writing with these things in mind. And Janet and the other folks at Combined Efforts walked me through the process, talked to me, and I attended rehearsals to kind of see how like the lines may need to be changed or different things can be implemented to make this play something that reach both our values. And so, and now we're kind of towards the end process of it, of the production. There's actually a production of this play that's happening this weekend, September 27th, 28th, and 29th at Montgomery Hall at the Fairgrounds in Iowa City, Iowa.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting, and it's too bad that this will be airing after the play is produced, but hopefully, just as with yours, Julia, this won't be the end, that this is something now that with Combined Efforts, there might be an opportunity for it to be performed in other communities, or, that's what I'm hoping, is that we can bring awareness through drama to other communities, and I'm very excited to see it, so.
We're running out of time, but could you both quickly mention any takeaways you got from the fellowship so far?
A takeaway that I've gotten is just, like, I feel like more connected within my own community, and then just through the partnerships that we've been able to connect with. And like recently I just got asked to be on this one board through the College of Public Health. So it's just opened new opportunity and just great partnerships, and great, like, we've learned the skills through the modules that we were able to learn through, and just the research. And so,
Right.
yeah, just, there's a lot of takeaways. But
Were you aware of LEND before the fellowship, before you got involved with the fellowship, or not? Or was that another outcome?
yeah, that's definitely another outcome that I just learned about through being a part of the fellowship.
So LEND is a leadership education in neurodevelopmental and related disorders. And it's a really awesome leadership program that we sometime need to bring on for an entire show or two. But Julia just got involved with as a LEND trainee, and so now she's going to be able to continue that work, and it's nice to know that connection happened as a result of the fellowship. So Jorrell, how about you? Takeaways or observations?
And so I'm glad also you said takeaways or observations, because I'm still so much like in it and immersed into this fellowship that a part of me is like, wait a minute, I'm like really processing a lot of it, right? But I feel like the earlier point you mentioned about that tension between disability work needs to be more diverse, and also like when we're talking about diversity, that need to be more includes disability as well. And so that's something that I'm actively thinking about, how can I participate in and bring those two together, right? Especially working with Combined Efforts, I'm thinking about how can I make my practice as an artist all disability inclusive, right? So everything from my poetry to my martial arts to theater practice, how can I do that in a way that's disability inclusive? So, and so and really, I guess now that I'm talking about it, I'm thinking the takeaway might be just like that awareness in that community, right? Just being aware about these issues, and also like the community, and how I fit in, how we all fit in together.
Well, and I hope that I'm sure that you've taught a lot to combined efforts about the diversity piece, and hopefully we'll incorporate. I shouldn't say we. I'm not a member, but they keep trying to recruit me, so that they will become more diverse. So, well, this has been a wonderful dialogue and learning opportunity for all of us, and we really want to thank both of you for taking the time to come back on our show for a second episode. We want to also thank our sponsors and our viewers out there, and we'd like to turn it over to Keith to wrap us up here.
And thank you for being so candid with your input. And out there, I hope the audience has learned a lot today. Thank you, and good evening.